We're in the Gemara, on the bottom of Mem Dalet Amud Beis, where it says, Omelei Rav Acha, Berei de Rav Ivye le Rav Ashi. So we had over here a machlokes in the Gemara about two different concepts. One concept is heter mitztaref le'isser. When you have something which is aser, but it's not the full amount, it's not a kazayis, for example, and then you have another half a kazayis from something which is mutter, and the two combine together to get you the full amount that it would be aser to eat it. That's one opinion. Then we learned this out all from Nazir. By Nazir it says mishras, when you soak a piece of bread in wine, so you have the wine which is aser, and it combines with the bread which is mutter, but it comes to the full amount. That's one concept. Another concept is tam ke'eker. When a person has even just a taste from something which is aser, for example, you put grapes in water, and the water gets the taste of the grapes, even though it's just water, but it's a taste of it, that itself is also aser. And that you also, according to another opinion, you learn that also out from Mishras. The Gemara brought that it's a machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbanan learn out the concept of tam ke'eker, and Rabbi Akiva learns out the concept of heter mitztaref le'isser. So what we learned yesterday is, the Gemara said that according to the Rabbanan, if the Torah says this chumrah, this stringency regarding Nazir, that the tam is aser, for sure you should apply this stringency to other Isurim, because Nazir is a more lenient Isser. Other Isurim like Arla Klayim is much more stringent than Nazir, so for sure you should apply it there as well. So now the question the Gemara is going to ask is, if that said regarding the tam ke'ikir according to the Rabbanon, why wouldn't I say the same thing regarding the rule of heter mitztaref le'isser? That if I say such a concept regarding Nazir, I should apply the same concept regarding the inyan of heter mitztaref le'isser, that I should apply to the rest of Torah. Nishma midrabanon, again, midrabanon nishma l'Rabbi Akiva, from the opinion of the Rabbanon, that say that I apply the drasha by Nazir to the rest of Torah, I should understand the same thing according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Milo yamri Rabbanan. Didn't the Rabbanan say that mishras, the drasha we learn out from the word mishras, litein tam ke'ikr, that even just the taste is like the substance itself, and therefore it's all aser. And mikan atadon l'chol yisurin sheb'Torah, and from here I learn out that the same is true regarding all other yisurin in Torah as well. So Rabbi Akiva Nami say the same thing according to Rabbi Akiva's drasha, that mishras, I learn out from the word mishras, leheter, mitztaref, le'isser, that I combine the shear of something that's mutter to another part of the shear, which is of something which is aser. So I should say that mikan atadon l'chol yisurin sheb'Torah kula, that the same should apply not only by Nazir, but by all yisurin of the Torah as well, just like the Rabbanan said. Amalei, so he answered, Rav Ashi explained to him, no, it's different. Mishum dahavia Nazir v'chatos shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad. This chiddush that I see, that I combine heter to iser, is something that I find in the Torah in two places, by Nazir, as we've quoted, and chatos, what it will bring. And therefore, the rule is, shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad, when the Torah repeats the same thing twice in two different places, ve'im belamden, I don't learn out from there. The Torah is showing me that it's a unique chiddush in these two places, and I don't compare it to anywhere else. So Nazir hadamara, I find by Nazir that heter is mitztaref to iser, as we've mentioned. Chatos, where do I find by chatos this concept? Maihi, Tanya, the Braise, it says, Kol sheyiga b'psara yiktosh. Whatever other meat will touch the meat of a carbon chatos will become holy like it. The Gemara will soon explain what the nafkamina of this is, but it says that if the other meat touches and absorbs something of the chatos, it becomes like the status of the chatos itself. Now the Braisa clarifies, what does it mean touches? Yachal afilu loy bala. I would think that means if it just touched it, even if it did not at all absorb anything from that meat, Talmud loyma b'psara, in the meat, the meaning it absorbed from that meat, then I say that it becomes like it itself. Ache yivla bebasar, has to be absorbed. If there's any other meat that absorbed from the carbon chatos, it becomes like the status of the chatos itself. Now the Braisa explains, what does that mean, that if it absorbs other meat that absorbs from the carbon chatos becomes like the chatos itself? Yiktosh li is kamaya, it becomes holy like it itself. She'im psula, if this was a carbon chatos that was pasul, for example, it was pigul or whatever other psul it had, and you weren't allowed to eat it, so then tipasal. She'im psula hi tipasal, so then whatever else touched it becomes pasul like it. Vim ksheira, if the meat of the carbon chatos was kosher, So then, ksheirahi, toichal kachama shaba. So you could only eat other meat that touched the carbon chatas like the carbon chatas itself. Now carbon chatas is kachik kachim. How long could any kachik kachim be eaten? Only a day and a night. So if you have another carbon, for example, a carbon shlomim, that could be usually eaten 2 nights. 2 days and a night, that is. Not 2 days and a night. But if it touches and absorbs from the carbon chatas, then it gets the halacha like the carbon chatas itself. Or any meat of chulin that touched the carbon chatas. So if the carbon chatas itself was pasul, so it becomes pasul, you can't eat it like the carbon chatas itself. If it's kosher, so then any meat that touched the carbon chatas, you could only eat it for a day and a night like the carbon chatas itself. So what do I see over here? It becomes like the carbon chatas itself, and it will become nicer like the carbon chatas. After that time period, you're not allowed to eat it like the carbon chatas. And if you eat from it, even though there's only very little that it absorbed from the carbon chatas, so now if you can eat a kazayas from this piece of meat that absorbed from that carbon chatas, a part of it is what it absorbed from the carbon chatas. A part of it is the meat which is mutter. Nevertheless, the two are combined and it makes up the full shear, and the isser of neiser applies. Okay, so over here I see that this idea that you're mitzaref heter to isser applies by carbon chatas. So the Torah tells it to me by nazir, and it tells it to me by chatos. So therefore I have 2 psukim where the Torah says this. I can't learn out to anywhere else. This is the reason why according to Rabbi Akiva I don't learn out. Rambanon nami, now according to the Rabbanon, nehevid nazir v'chatos shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad ve'im melamdim. Why wouldn't we say according to the Rabbanon the same concept, that chatos and nazir are 2 psukim that are telling me the concept of tam ke'ikir, and I can't learn out from there. In other words, the Gemara is now explaining.
Your input is invalid.
The Gemara is now explaining that when it comes to the Rabbanon's opinion, when it says by carbon chatos, this halacha, that if it absorbed from the carbon chatos, that it becomes asr, what does that mean? Even if it absorbs just a taste, the whole thing becomes asr. So I see the Torah telling me this rule of tam ke'ikir, that just the taste itself makes it like the carbon chatos itself. So the Torah tells it to me by nazir, by mishras, that the taste is like the substance itself, and it's telling it to me over here by chatos. So why, according to the Rabbanan, wouldn't I say that it's shnei ksuvim abam kechad ve'im melamdin? Amri, the Rabbanan answered to you, no, hanu mitzrach tzrichi. The 2 drashes of nazir and chatas are both needed. It's not considered to be the Torah repeating itself. It's needed each one, so you could learn out from here. But Rabbi Akiva says, no, why are you saying they're needed? My tzrichi, why do you need both of these drashes? Bishloi because of Rachmana b'chatos, if the Torah would write this chiddush, the Rabbi Akiva's chiddush, which is that heter is mitzdaref le'isser. If it would write it only by chatos, so loy goma nozim, you know. I can't learn out nazir from chatos. The chulin mikachim loy gomrinon. I never learn out chulin from kachim. Kachim is always more stringent. So I understand why the Torah has to write nazir as well. Ella, but on the other hand, lichtav rachmana ben nazir. Let the Torah write this chiddush that heter is mitzdaref to isser by nazir. V'teisi chatas v'tigma minay. And then I could learn out chatas from it. Nazir is certainly more lenient than chatas from kachim. So why can't the Torah just write it by nazir and I learn out chatas from this? So therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, you can't tell me that it's all needed. The hakol yisurin shebetayra kagama minazir. We said before that we could learn out all yisurin of the Torah of nazir. So for sure we could learn out chatas from nazir. Rabbanan amri la. However, the Rabbanan will tell you, you know why you need them. Mitzrach tzrichi, you need both of them as follows. Chatos, by chatos, which rule is it teaching me? Leheter, mitzdaref, leisser. There, it's teaching me the rule that when you have a little bit of an absorption from the carbon chatos, it combines to the meat that's mutter, and it makes up the full shear. If you eat it of it after it's nicer, after the time that the chatas is allowed to be eaten, the heter is mitzdaref to isser and it becomes totally yasser. It's that rule that we learn out from there. And the chulim mikachim loigama, and that's a rule that's only here by kachim. And according to the Rabbanon, I don't apply this rule anywhere else. And then mishras, when the Torah says the halacha of mishras by nazir, that if you soak the bread in wine, that it's aser, over here it's teaching me something else. Litein tam ke'ikir. Here it's actually talking about a person that had grapes that was soaked in water, and the water just got the taste of the grapes. So it's teaching me a different rule, of tam ke'ikir. So it's 2 different rules that it's teaching me. So you can't tell me that it's the Torah repeating the same pasuk again, the same rule again. And from here, from Nazir, I learn out to all of Torah the concept of tam ke'ikir. That's Rabbanan's opinion. But Rabbi Akiva says no. Tarvayu leheter mitzdaref leisser. Both of these psukim, by chatas and by nazir, I learn out the concept of heter mitzdaref le'isr. And therefore the Torah is repeating the same thing twice. And I can't learn out if the Torah repeats it twice. So Rashi explains, going back to what we learned yesterday in the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva holds the concept of tam ke'ikir, you learn out from Giyulei Nochrim. When they came back from the war, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that you have to kasher all the kalim because of the taste that was in the walls of the kalim, that's where you learn out the inyan of tam kicker. So you don't have to learn it out from what it says over here by Mishras. So from Mishras you learn out a different chiddush, a bigger chiddush, of heter mitzdaref le'isr. So therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, it comes out that the Torah is repeating that concept of heter mitzdaref le'isr twice. So therefore I can't learn it out from here to anywhere else. Rashi points out here, the Gemara doesn't conclude the whole inyan, but there is another opinion based on what we learned before in the Gemara regarding Taruvas Chametz, and that is the Rabbanon. This is in the long Rashi here, Rabbi Akiva. Towards the end of that Rashi, he says, Rabbanon don't hold of the inyan of Tam Ki'ikr. If Rabbanon would hold of the inyan that even the taste is like the substance itself, so that what was the Rabbanon's opinion? Rabbanon holds that Taruvas Chametz is mutam min atayra. How could Taruvas Chametz be mutam min atayra? You have the taste of Chametz in it. If I learn that from Nazir to Kol HaTorah Kula, that even the taste answers it, so for sure, even if it's not Kedei Achilas Pras, you don't need it. If there's a taste of Chametz there, even in the other ingredients, it got the taste of Chametz. The fact that Chachamim hold that Haruvas Chametz is Mutam and Atayra means that they don't hold of the whole inyan of Tam Ke'ikr. Rabbi Eliezer that says that it is Asam and Atayra, so even his opinion, also you're going to have to say he doesn't hold of Tam Ke'ikr because he brings a special pasuk of Kol. He needs a special drasha. So we see that the Emes, we don't hold of the inyan of Tam Ke'ikr. It's only by Nazir in a few places in Torah, by Nazir, by Chatas, but we paskin that in the rest of Yisurim of Torah, you don't say Tam Ke'ikr. Saidabli as a Sai Chachamim disagree with this. So now going back to Nazir, so it says in a Braisa, Mikola sheyase migefen ayayin, whatever comes from the grapes, mechatzanim, the skins, vadzog, or chatzanim are actually the seeds, vadzog, or the skins of the grapes. So all of this is also to eat. So we learn from this pasuk, limid al isurei nazir shemitzarfim zeh zeh. On nazir, even though it's two separate lavim, and so nevertheless, if you have a half a kazayis from the skins and a half a kazayis of seeds and you eat them together, it combines to be yasser. The question is, hashtel Rabbi Akiva. Now, Rabbi Akiva's opinion is, Isser v'heter mitzdarfen, even if you have a half a kazayis of Isser and a half a kazayis of heter, bread that's soaked in wine, they could be combined to make up the full Isser. Isser v'isser mibaya, is it necessary to say if I have two different parts of the grape that it combines to be a full shear? Amalei, so he answers him, this chiddush, the chiddush in this brayse here is as follows. Isser v'heter b'vasachas. When do I say that you have a half a kazayis of Isser and half a kazayis of heter that combines? That's only if you eat it mamish at once. But Isser v'isser b'zeh achazeh. The chiddush by Isser v'isser is you have two different parts of the grapes, it's two different lavim, but yet, even one after the other, it'll be mitzdaref. That's the chiddush in this case. But it's only if it's b'chdei achilas pras. It's only mitzdaref if you eat it one after the other within a certain amount of time, not if it's tam in a complete hefsek. But that's a different chiddush when it comes to Isser v'isser. Zok the Mishnah. So here this Mishnah is going to discuss going back to the halacha of Bal Yeroah, Bal Yamatzeh. What amount of chametz is it that you have to get rid of Pesach? How large does it have to be? And the Mishnah is also going to discuss the halacha of sometimes you have chametz that even if it's mamish chametz gomer, but nevertheless, if a person is not machshav it as the chametz, a person designated it for something else, it loses its entire status of being chametz, as we'll see. Zok the Mishnah, Batzik shebesitke areva. You have dough that's in the cracks of a bowl that's being used for anything to contain in it. So now this bowl has chametz that's used to hold a crack. Im yesh kazayis b'makom echad. So if there's a kazayis of chametz there in one place, chayav levayir. You have to you have to get rid of that chametz that's stuck inside that crack there. The kazayis is the amount that I say that you have to get rid of it. If there's no kazayis there, batal b'miyutay. So then it's less than a kazayis, it's completely batal. The halacha is, this says in the beginning of Masechta Beitza, The Alter Rebbe quotes this in Shulchan Aruch. Min ha-teire, the Isser of Bal Yirah, Bal Yamatzah, is only a kazayas. We compare the Isser of Achila to the Isser of Bal Yirah. It says it in the Teire together. Just like Achila in the Teire is always a kazayas, the Isser of not having chametz found in your house, min ha-teire, is only a kazayas. Midrabanan, it's even less than a kazayas. There was a gzeira that if you'll have even less than a kazayas, you may come to have a kazayas as well. But minatayr, it's only a kazayas. So what the Mishnah here is saying is that this batzik, this dough that's in the crack of a reva, of a bowl, so if it's a kazayas, so then you have to get rid of it. If it's less than a kazayas, then it's batal b'miyutay. So we'll see in the Gemara, it will qualify exactly when this is, what we're talking about. There's different opinions in the Gemara about this. This distinction regarding dough that's in a crack of the bowl is also true regarding tumah. The question is, that dough that you put there in the crack, you're putting it there to hold the bowl together. So you annul that dough for the purpose of being used as now as part of the bowl. So that we say the same thing regarding tumah. When it comes to a keli that you have to toivel, you can't have any chatzitza. You can't have anything that's separating between the water and the bowl itself. So the question is, that dough that's there in the crack, is it a chatzitza or not? If it's something that you're particular about, you don't want it to be there, so then chaitzitz, it is a chatzitza. You have to get it out before you tayvel it. But you want that dough to be there to hold the crack, to hold the bowl together, so then harei karev, it becomes like part of the bowl itself, and therefore it's not a chatzitza. This the Gemara will explain also exactly, because the Mishnah here says v'chein le'inyan atoma. So it's mashma that the size of kazayas matters. And then a moment afterwards, the Mishnah says it depends on if you're particular about it or not. So the Gemara will explain that. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmul. So Rav Yehuda Mashmul explained our Mishnah. Lo shanu ela b'mokayim she'ein asuyin l'chazik. This that it says in the Mishnah that you're chayiv, you have to get rid of this chametz if it's the size of a kazayas. That's only if the dough is in the place in the bowl where it's not used to strengthen that crack. You don't need it there to insulate the bowl. If you put the dough in a place where there's a crack, where you need it to insulate the bowl, so then ein a chayiv levayir, even if it's the size of a kazayas, you don't have to get rid of this chametz, because now, even though it's mamish chametz gomer, and it's a kazayas as well, but nevertheless, in your mind, you made it part of the material of the bowl. So it loses its status of chametz. If the bowl, let's say, is a wooden bowl, it becomes like a piece of wood. It becomes like part of the material of the bowl, and you don't have to get rid of it. So you have a bowl, you have the upper part of the bowl, the walls in the upper part where you don't need it to insulate, and there's chametz that's there, and then you have the lower part of the bowl, where you need it to actually as an insulation. If you put it there in the lower part of the bowl and you need it for an insulation, then even if it's the size of a kazayas, it's going to be allowed, you're allowed to keep it there. You don't have to get rid of it. So what do we see from what Rav Yehuda Mashmul says? So the Gemara explains, Meklal, from this I understand, the paches mekazayis, if the amount of dough that's there in the crack of a bowl is less than a kazayis, afilu b'makim she'ein asil l'chazik, ein chayav levayir. Even if it's in a place where it's not insulating the bowl, it's on the top part of the bowl, you're not going to have to get rid of it. So if it's less than a kazayis, it's never a problem, according to this opinion. There's no gzeira midrabanan, less than a kazayis. More than a kazayis, so then it depends. If you're using it as an insulation, it becomes like part of the bowl. If it's not used as insulation, it doesn't become like part of the bowl. So in other words, according to the first opinion, the obligation to be mevayer the chametz is only going to be with two conditions. It has to be the shear of a kazayis and in an area of the bowl where it's not used as an insulation. But others said what Rav Yehuda Mashmul said regarding the seifa of the Mishnah, and much more stringent. And he said as follows: what did it say in the seifa? V'im lav batal b'miyutay, that if it's less than a kazayis, so then you can leave it there. It's part of the bowl. You don't have to get rid of it. On the seifa, Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmul, loishanu ela b'makom asil l'chazik. If it's less than a kazayis, the only reason you don't have to get rid of it is because it's in a part of the bowl where it's used as an insulation. But if it's in the place of a bowl where it's on top of the part of the bowl and it's not being used as an insulation, then chayiv levayir. Then you do have to get rid of it, even if it's less than a kazayis. Meklal, so if according to this version of what Rav Yehuda Mashmul said, I see the kazayis, once it's the amount of a kazayis, afilu b'makom asil l'chazik chayiv levayir. Even if it's in the bottom of the bowl where it is an insulation, you still have to get rid of it. So Adarabah, this opinion is saying the opposite. When are you not obligated to get rid of it? You have to have two conditions for that. It has to be less than a kazayis, And it has to be in a part of the bowl where it's used as an insulation, so it becomes like part of the material of the bowl. If it's either a kazayas, or it's in a part of the bowl where it's not used as an insulation, you're going to have to get rid of it. So this is, as I mentioned before, the gzeira that Chazal made, that even though minat Torah bal yirah is only a kazayas, but minat Rabbanan, even less than a kazayas, is going to be a chiyuv to get rid of the chametz. So the Gemara brings two braises. Each one says like the other lashon. Tanya kalishna kama. We have a clear braise that says like the first lashon. Tanya kalishna basra. We have another braise that says like the second lashon. Tanya kalishna kama, and one braise that says like the first lashon. Batzik shebesitke areva. The dough in the cracks of a bowl. B'makam asil chazik. If it's in a place where it's made over there to insulate, then ein chaitzitz. It's not a chatzitza for tumah. It becomes like part of the bowl. The ein over, you're not over bal yirah. It's part of the material of the bowl. If it's in a place in the bowl where it's not insulating it, chaitzitz, it's a chatzitza for tefillah, and also v'oiver, you're going to be over bal yirah. Then the Braisa adds, but when are you over bal yirah? Bekazayis. Only if, besides the fact that it's not insulating the bowl, it's also the size of a kazayis. But if it's less than that amount, even if it's not insulating the bowl, it's not a chatzitza, you're not even bal yirah. So this Braisa clearly says, like the first opinion, which is more lenient, that the only time you have to get rid of it is both if it's a kazayis and if it's in an area in the bowl where it's not insulating it. But then v'tanya kalishna basre, then we have a second Braisa that says exactly like the second lashon. The dough that's in the crack of a bowl, if the bowl is in a place where it's insulating it, so then it's not a chatzitza, you're not even bal yirah. If it's in the part of the bowl where it's not insulating it, it is a chatzitza, and you are going to be over on bal yirah by matzah. But then the Braisa says, when is it that it was said that you're not going to be over bal yirah if it's in a place where it's insulating the crack? In addition, it also has to be less than a kazayas. So in other words, to not be over, there are two conditions. It has to be in a place that it's insulating and less than a kazayas. Aval b'kazayas, if it is the size of a kazayas, then afilu b'makimo osi l'chazik, even if it's in a place where it says an insulation there, chaitzitz, it will be chaitzitz, and v'over, you are going to be over in bal yirah. Once it's a kazayas, it doesn't matter where it is. You're going to be over. So this is like the second opinion, that they wore geyser for a kazayas. And if it's less than a kazayas, there are two stringencies here really, as we'll see soon in the Gemara. There are two stringencies. One is that a kazayas, you're always going to be over. And the second stringency is, even less than a kazayas, if it's in a place where it's not made to insulate, then you're going to be over. So kashina dodi, I have a contradiction of these two braises. Rav Huna, says Rav Huna, Sami kilsa mikami chamirta. Erase the braisa, the first braisa that's more lenient, because of the second braisa, which is more stringent. We're going to go l'chumra. It's the Isra of Chametz, and this is the Gzeir of the Chachamim. We're going to go more l'chumra. We erase the first Braisa. We accept the second Braisa. Rav Yosef says, Tanoi shaklis mi'alma. You removed all Tanoim of the world. You can't find any Tana to resolve these two Braisas and say that one Braisa is one Tana, another Braisa is another Tanya. I'll show you that there's a machlokes Tanoim about this. Tanoi, the Tanya we learned in the Braisa, hapas she'ipsha, bread that became moldy, chayev levayir. You still have to get rid of this bread, even though it's not fit for a person to eat, because you can still use it for something. You can use it to grind little pieces of it. And then if you want to help other doughs become chametzdik, you put in this bread in it, leftovers from this bread, and it'll help it become chametzdik, using it like yeast basically. So it's still something that's useful. So therefore you have to get rid of it. Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, when is it if you have bread or anything that's left over that you didn't use, that you still have to get rid of it, if you're keeping it to eat? Aval, kupas, sa'ir, but what's if you have a big piece of dough, sheyichta liyeshiva, it became hard, like a rock hard piece, and you're not using it anymore for eating. And now you're using it just to sit on it, like a little stool. So batla. So now that you've designated it to sitting on it, even though it's pure chametz, but it loses its status of chametz. Just like we said before, when you have the dough in a crack, it becomes part of the material of the dough itself. So Rab Shimon is saying over here, even if you have mamish a full piece, which is much bigger than a kazayis, and you're using it like a little stool, now that it becomes like a stool, it's not chametz anymore. It's like a piece of wood. So what do I see here? So there's a machlokes here. Alma kasavar. I see Rab Shimon's opinion is kol kizayis. Even if I have chametz that's much more than a kizayis. Afal gav. I still skipped something. Okay, I'm sorry. Go back up. Okay, I'm sorry. We're going back up. Mid Amar Rab Shimon ben Elazar batla. So Rab Shimon ben Elazar is the one that says this chiddush that once you're designating it to sit on it, it becomes batal. So even though it's larger than a kazayis, nevertheless, it's not chametz anymore. But I see that the Tanakama argues on this. Miklal, the Tanakama savar, the Tanakama's opinion was loy batla. That even after you designated it to sit on it, it's not batal because it's larger than a kazayis. So what's their machlekes? When you have chametz, which is larger than a kazayis, that was designated for sitting, for something else, not to eat, does it lose its status of chametz? So al bekasava kol kazayis, when it comes to a kazayis, afagav de mevatel, loy batal. Even though you mevatel it, it doesn't become batal. So here in this braisa, I clearly see this machlekes regarding a kazayis of chametz. Does it become batal if I designated it for a different use or not? So just like this is true regarding designating it for sitting on it, the same is also regarding designating it to use in the crack in a bowl. Do I say that because it's now insulating this bowl, it becomes part of the material of the bowl? Or no, once it's a kazayis, it's large enough to be asr, and designating it for anything doesn't change it. So I see this machlokes. So that answers the contradiction of the two braises. These are the two opinions there, the Tanakama and Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says about this answer of Rav Yosef, it's not a full answer. Teratzta bekizayis. You only answer the contradiction of the two braises regarding the chametz that's the size of a kizayis. Pachas mikizayis mi teratzta. Did you answer the contradiction regarding less than a kizayis? As I pointed out before, the two braises, there was another chiddush over here. Less than a kazayis. One brisa said that less than a kazayis is no gzeira. Less than a kazayis you never have to get rid of. Another brisa said that less than a kazayis, if it's in a place where it's not insulating the bowl, you do have to get rid of it. So there's a contradiction regarding less than a kazayis. That you didn't answer. Elo, so the Gemara gives a different answer. Abaye gives a different answer. Ha v'ha Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Both brises will follow Rab Shimon ben Elazar's opinion that by a kazayis, once you designate it for something else, it becomes batal. You don't have to get rid of it anymore. But v'loy kashya, and now the stira and the two brises is not a question as follows. Ha b'makim lisha, one brisa is talking about the part of the bowl which is used to knead the dough in it, and ha shaloi b'makim lisha. Another brisa is talking about the part of the bowl where you do not use to knead in it. So the Gemara here is very concise. Rashi explains that what the Gemara means to say is, when you look at a bowl, there are three different parts to it. There's the bottom of the bowl. The bottom of the bowl is always where you contain things in it. You have liquid that's contained in that. Then you have the upper parts of the wall of the bowl where it doesn't necessarily always contain things in it. You don't need it for the insulation. But when you are kneading a dough in this bowl, so then even the upper parts of the bowl, the walls of the bowl, are needed for being able to knead in it, the mokim lisha. And then you have the third part of the bowl, which is the rims of the bowl, all the way to the top, the rims of the bowl. That is not needed at all, even for the kneading of the dough. That's mamish all the way at the top. So now Rashi says, the question is, where do you have this piece of dough in this crack of the bowl? If you have the piece of dough in the crack of the bowl at the bottom, where it's mamish used as an insulation, so over there, even a kizayis will become batal. That Rashi says that's what's called the shulayim. The bottom of the bowl, even a kazayas, everybody agrees will be totally batal because we're following the opinion of Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Once you designated it for something as an insulation, just like if you designated it for sitting on it, it'll be batal. Then you have the middle section of the bowl, the walls of the bowl. Those walls of the bowl over there, so if it's going to be a kazayas, so then that's large enough that it's not going to be batal there, because that's the part of the bowl where you don't mamish need the insulation. Sometimes when you're kneading it, so then you need the walls, but it's not mamish used as an insulation. So over there, if it's a kazayas, it won't be batal, but less than a kazayas, it will be batal. Then you come to the rims of the bowl. The rims of the bowl, there it doesn't matter. The rims of the bowl, any chametz that's there is not needed at all for the purpose of the insulating or using for the walls of the bowl itself. Over there, even less than a kazayas will not be batal, and even less than a kazayas you're going to have to get rid of it. So Rashi explains, when the Gemara here says, Ha b'makim lisha, ha shalei b'makim lisha, one braisa that was more machmer, the second braisa that was more machmer, was talking about the two upper parts of the bowl. It was talking about the walls and the rim. So therefore it was more machmer. Therefore that braisa said that less than a kazayas you have to get rid of because it's mamish by the rim, so this has no purpose, no use. And then it was talking about the walls, so less than a kazayis, you don't have to get rid of. The other brisa that was more lenient was talking about the lower part of the bowl. It was talking about the bottom of the bowl, the shulayim of the bowl, and the walls of the bowl. It wasn't talking about the rim. So because it was talking about the lower part of the bowl, therefore it was more machmer. So there's no argument over here. This is just three different parts of the bowl that these two brises are speaking about. That's Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. So now the Gemara explains, Amar Avashi, Loi Taime, don't say that Shaloi b'makim lisha, the part of the bowl. You mind closing the door there? Thank you so much. Don't say that when we're talking about that part of the bowl, when we're talking about the part of the bowl which you don't use for kneading, agabot degana, that we're talking about the exterior of the bowl, that's not the pshat over here. Because the exterior of the bowl is not part of the bowl where you're using to contain something inside at all. Ella afsifsa de agana. What we're talking over here about is the rim of the bowl. That's what we're talking about. Says the Gemara, Pshita, obviously the exterior of the bowl, if you have chametz that's attached to the exterior of the bowl, obviously it has zero purpose whatsoever. The Braisa wouldn't even be speaking about that. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Mao, the tame is zimnin, the atif, mati lahasam. Sometimes when you're kneading, the dough spills over and it comes out even to the outside. I would think maybe that's what Abaye meant to say. Kamash Mulan, therefore Rav Ashi is clarifying that Rav Ashi was only talking about the interior of the bowl up to the rims, but not on the outside. This Batzik Shebesitki Areve, yeah? That's the whole Chiddush of our sugya today. We're talking about Chametz Gomer that's Roy Lachila. And could even be, according to one opinion, a Kazayas. But the fact that the person designated it as an insulation, it becomes mamish like a shtickle wood. But pile, we don't paskin this way. This is the hemshch of the Gemara. We'll see over here that there's another condition for this. This is mamish the next piece here. The Gemara says, even when you designate it for something, it's still chametz gomer. So there's another thing you have to do in order not to be chayiv to get rid of it. Amarav Nachman Amarav, halacha Rab Shimon ben Elazar. We paskin like Rab Shimon ben Elazar that once you designated it for sitting or for insulation in a bowl, even if it's larger than a kazayis, you don't have to get rid of it. Says the Gemara, Any, is this true? For Amarav Yitzchak bar Ashi, Amarav im toch panel betit. Only if you put on the top of this chametz that you now designated for sitting or as an insulation, you also put cement on top of it, then batla, then that chametz is batl. Tachin, only if you put cement in it, you covered it with something, loy tach loy, but not if you didn't put cement on it. So we see that we don't pass like Rab Shimon ben Elazar. So the Gemara says, man de masniha, loy masniha. The one that said this in the name of Rav did not say this in the name of Rav, and it's taka machlaikis. The Gemara brings another version. Iked Amri Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Ein Halacha Rab Shimon ben Elazar. We don't pass like Rab Shimon ben Elazar. The Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Ashi Amar Rav Im Toch Paneh Betit Batla Chulu. Only if you cover it with cement, then it's bottle. And that's the Psak Halacha. The Alter Rebbe brings us a Siman Tov Mem Beis and Shulchan Aruch that anytime you have chametz that's designated, sometimes you have some kind of glue or paste or whatever it is that's used on a wall or whatever, in any place that you're using it as an insulation for something, if it's covered over with something, if it's painted over, then it's not an issue. But if it's not painted over and it's exposed, so then it is an issue. That's the halacha that we pass like. There's a lot of people that do this when you have, let's say, a crack somewhere in the wall and you can't get to it. So even though me'ikra din, lav dafki, you're supposed to do bedik in such a place because you can't get to it, but people pour poison over it or they cover it with something so that it should be kimavur min ha'olam. It's not usable anymore. It's covered, so then it's this is the market for this minig that some people have.
But here the Kiddush is it's in a bowl. You could put hot water in there.
Yeah. So we're talking about such kind of chametz, obviously, that won't dissolve. If it's being used as an insulation, apparently it's chametz that's dry in such a way that it mamish becomes like a chelik of the bowl. But still, the Gemara is maskana, la halach is that it's only if you paint it over the bowl or you cover that chametz. If not, it's not going to be bottled. The Alter Rebbe also brings in Shulchan Aruch the famous Rosh on our sugya that says that there are many different things. You have chametz that's stuck in a chair, in a table, or in a wall, and all kinds of things that you're not chayav to get rid of. It's less than a kazayas, and it's there. You're not chayav to get rid of it. But Yisrael kedoshim heim, Yidden are holy, and even they rub the chairs and the tables and the walls and all kinds of things. And Yisrael kedoshim heim, and they do it even though you're not obligated. That's a famous Rosh that the Alter Rebbe quotes in Siman Tov Mem Beis towards the end. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. There's a famous word of Rav Levi Yitzchak Baditchev, the tashrak, kashrak, kratzen, shayren, reiben, and whatever. That's like accomplishes what Kiyas Sheifa accomplishes when the women are busy cleaning for Pesach. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Shnei chatzoi zeisim. If you have 2 half-a zeisim, v'chut shel batzik b'neihem, and there's a little bit of dough that connects the two of them. So this is the 2 half zeisim that are in a bowl that are insulating the bowl, but there is a connection between these 2 half zeisim. Royen, so I look and see as follows: Kol shilu yonot lachut. If you're going to remove that chut, that connecting part, so the 2 half kazaysim are going to come along and be removed as well. So then chayav levayir. So that connecting part is strong enough that it makes it like a kazayis. So you have to get rid of it. A kazayis you have to always get rid of. If that connecting thing, if you snap it, it's going to remain separate. So then it's 2 half kazaysim separately. So you don't have to get rid of it. We were talking over here about 2 half kazaysim that are in a bowl. If you have 2 half kazaysim of dough that's in your house, that chayiv levayir. Then you're going to have to get rid of, even if those 2 half kazaysim don't have any chut connecting them. If you have a half a kazayis of dough in your house, you have to get rid of 2 half. Why? My time the zimnin the konish luhu. It's possible that you'll sweep up, or they'll come, you'll gather it. V'nafli gabi adodi, and these 2 half kazaysim will get combined, and it'll be 1 full kazayis. So this is, as I mentioned before, the gzeir of Chazal. Min atayra, only a kazayis you have to get rid of. But even less than a kazayis, you have to get rid of it because it might become a full kazayis. They asked Marava the question, Bayis va'aliyah. Is this true even if you have 1 half a kazayis on the bottom floor and another half a kazayis on the top floor? Mahu, what's the halacha? Bayis v'achsadra. You have one half a kazayis in your house and another half in an achsadra, sort of outside. What's going to be the halacha then? Mahu, shnei batim, zeluf nemizeh. You have 2 houses, one inside the other, 2 different rooms or 2 different houses. Mahu, what's going to be the halacha? I have a kazayis in one house and the other. Am I concerned that it's going to be combined? Teku, all these cases, the Gemara says teku. Tan Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa, pas she'ipsha. So here we come to a different halacha. Till now we're talking about chametz. In the beginning of the perek, we were talking about taruvas chametz, or chametz noiksha, which was chametz that was never fit for eating. Now we're talking about chametz that was fit for eating, but it became not fit for eating. Pas she'ipsha, it became moldy. But as the Mefarshim say, all the Rishayim say, we're talking about that it became unfit for eating before Pesach. If this happens in the middle of Pesach, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take away the yisr. Before Pesach, it became moldy. A person couldn't eat it, but a dog would still eat this. It still has a status of food, that the tumah of food would apply to this, even though only a dog would eat it. The kebetze, in the amount of a kebetze, the amount that it would become tameh. If it's truma, because you can't eat it anymore, so a kayin can't eat it, you're allowed to make it tameh. You can burn it together with truma tmeya on Pesach. In the name of Rab Nassan, it was said, Eina mitama, that it does not become tameh, because it's not fit for a person to eat, even though it's fit for a dog to eat, but it does not become tameh anymore. So according to whose opinion there's the following Mishnah go. Right, so Rab Nassan's arguing. Rab Nassan is saying, Eina mitama. According to whose opinion there's the following Mishnah go. There was a klal that was said regarding taris. If a person could eat this tameh, then it would become tameh. Only if a dog wouldn't eat it, then it won't become tameh. Kaman, according to who is this Mishnah? Rab Nassan. Not according to Rab Nassan. Rab Nassan says as long as a person won't eat it, it will not become tameh. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in Abraisa, Areva so avdonin. So this is the halacha that we're bringing up over here, that you have chametz, but it becomes unfit for human consumption, or maybe unfit for consumption of even achilas kelev of a dog. So then it's not chametz anymore that you have to get rid of. So we bring another brayso, a similar subject. Areves avdanim. You have the bowl that's used by the tanners, where they work with the hides of animals to work it out. So one of the things that they use for this is flour. So you placed flour into this bowl. So if it's teich shloisha yomim, if it's within 3 days to Pesach, chayev levar. You have to get rid of this flour, because even if you had the hides of the animal together with this flour, but if it's only within 3 days, the flour doesn't become totally disgusting and spoiled. You still could use it to eat from it. So you have to get rid of it. Kaidim shleisha yamim, but if the flour is in that bowl where you work with the hides of the animal before 3 days, even if there was no hides of the animal in it, but if it's there for more than 3 days, ein a chayav levayir. You don't have to get rid of it. It's long enough that it becomes disgusting, no one will eat it. Rab Nosson says, no, it doesn't depend on the amount of time. It depends on something else. When do I say the flour that's used by these tanners, that you don't have to get rid of it if the hide of the animal was placed in the bowl together with the flour? Sorry, that you have to get rid of it if you did not place the hides of the animal in the bowl. But if you already placed the hides of the animal there together with the flour, even if it's within 3 days, it becomes disgusting, you don't have to get rid of it. We pass like Rab Nosson, even if you put the flour just a moment ago, but as soon as you put the hides of the animal in it, it becomes disgusting and it's not royal achila, and therefore it's not aser on Pesach.